My Lords, just for the record, I have not been on this bench all day, but I've heard the first dozen speeches from the side of the throne, some from the bar and others from my office. There are only two speeches one can make on this debate. Either we accept the decision of the people and let this bill pass, or we substitute our judgment for that of the electorate and the Commons. I submit that your Lordship's expert opinions and my inexpert opinion on whether the UK should leave or remain in the EU, on whether or not it is good or bad for the UK, are utterly irrelevant. The decision is not ours as parliamentarians to make or to second guess. The bill before us today simply provides for the outcome of the referendum to be respected. It was made very clear in the debate on the referendum bill and by the government during the referendum period that the decision rested with the people and that the government would implement without question whatever the people decided. It was not a case, my lords, that the government would implement the decision of the people only if Parliament approved of the referendum result. Nor is it the case that we would only leave if we stayed in the so-called single market or customs union. Indeed, when Vote Leave suggested that we could still leave and access the single market, the then Prime Minister and all Government and Remain spokesmen denounced that and said it was absolutely clear that leaving the EU meant leaving the single market and customs union. We couldn't have our cake and eat it. So it's simply disingenuous to suggest that Parliament has a right to determine whether or not we should leave the EU because the question of the single market and customs union were not on the ballot paper. The House will know that my right honourable friend, Sir Oliver Letwin MP, was one of the government's foremost Remain campaigners, and he was the Prime Minister's chief guru and thinker and advisor on these matters. He said in the other place, on the 31st of January, during the bill's second reading, quote, "I made it clear that an inevitable consequence of leaving the EU would be leaving the single market and leaving the customs union. It seems to me that the people voting were leaving with their eyes wide open, knowing that the consequences might be of our falling back on the WTO rules. My Lords, we are leaving the EU, and it does not depend on whether or not we in this House or anyone else likes or agrees with the final terms. Of course, we want a good deal, but the decision of the electorate was to leave, whether or not we get a good deal, however defined, or no deal at all. And I submit we have nothing to be afraid of when we are a free independent nation once again. The Bank of England almost every other week upgrades our growth forecast for this year. Last May it forecast Brexit would cause a recession, but in August growth would be up to 0.8%. Then in November growth would be up to 1.4%, and 2 weeks ago it forecast growth at 2%. And we've got the same old Project Fear tunes from the IMF as well. My Lords, many Remainers say, and I've heard it today, that the majority to leave the EU is very small. Well, I say, my Lords, that many millions more would have voted to leave if the Bank of England, Her Majesty's Treasury, 600 dodgy economists and the IMF had not blitzed the referendum campaign with a coordinated series of financial scares, dodgy forecasts and the old Project Fear. We would have had a massive majority if they told us now what they were telling us, not what they were telling us then. My Lords, there are many experts in this House who know about the EU and trade. I don't pretend to have any of that expertise, but I do know a little bit about the British electorate and the firestorm we will unleash if we seek to thwart them. I faced the British electorate 7 times in the past and been elected 6 times. I've been in I lost the first one, I should say. I've been in general elections where my party got a thumpy majority, and also where we were thrown out by an even bigger majority. Like it or not, I believe the public got it about right on those occasions. They also got it right on the 23rd of June last year. And I say to your Lordships, particularly those who have not been former members of Parliament, you have no idea of the destruction we would create if we go against the decision of the electorate now. We cannot use the excuse that we're fulfilling our usual role of tidying up messy Commons legislation or simply scrutinising it. There's nothing in this tiny little bill to scrutinise, my Lords. It's a small bill, and it came to us from the Commons with a huge majority. If the bill were to be amended, then it should have been done in the other place. But the Commons did not amend it, and if we seek to do so, it will be perceived by those outside as deliberate sabotage of the will of the people, no matter how much we try and dress it up as improvement or scrutiny. I submit that those amendments on the order paper are nothing to do with scrutiny. They are an attempt to build in conditions and tie the Prime Minister's hands. The Government has agreed to give Parliament a say on the withdrawal deal and our future relationship with the EU before the European Parliament votes on it. It's absolutely right, I believe, that parliamentarians should not be able to use this vote to demand further negotiations with Brussels in an effort to keep us in the EU by the back door. If the EU knows there may be further negotiations after the initial agreement is made, then that will incentivise them to give us a bad deal in the first place. Finally, my Lords, I have no intention of criticising the Lib Dems tonight. Indeed, I intend to praise one of them to the heavens. So let me end by quoting a former Member of Parliament and leader of the Liberal Party, the spokesman for the Lib Dems, speaking early in the morning of Friday the 24th of June on ITV. The noble Lord, the Lord Ashdown, said with all the passion which he can bring to a speech, he said, "I will forgive no one who does not respect the sovereign voice of the British people once it is spoken, whether it is a majority of 1 or 20%. It is our duty as those who serve the public to make sure the country does the best it can with the decision they have taken." He went on, "In, out, when the British people have spoken, you do what they command," he said. Either you believe in democracy or you don't. When democracy speaks, we obey. All of us do. So said the leader of the a former leader of the Liberal Democratic Party on the Friday morning. What has changed, my Lords? If this House tries to sabotage the bill by building in amendments on the single market or customs union or the end deal, then forget about the press criticism of the judges. The criticism will be of us, and we will be called the real enemy of the people. We will have unleashed demons which will not be controlled. This House will be destroyed, and I believe we would have turmoil on the streets. All the latest opinion polls show that the mood amongst the public, even those who voted Remain, is to get on with it, and get on with it now. That's good advice, my Lords, and I suggest we follow it.